helped him a lot with that. He changed a lot. He started shopping at Whole Foods. He still hits me up. He lives out here now. He's I go to Whole Foods. And I'm like, great. But anyways, he smelled so good and I love that. And you're supposed to like be attracted to a person because of how their chemistry and their pheromones, what they're putting off. And when we're wearing perfumes, we're massive.
Okay, guys, got Jenelle back in studio today. She is on a 30-day fast. You are on the 21st day right now, right?
Yes. So super cool if you believe in numerology and things like that. But yeah, I used to do this stuff all the time when I was training in Thailand. Then I had my son, breastfed him for about 7 years. Didn't want to do any heavy detoxes. And so I was like he's 9 now, it's a few years overdue. So I just said, you know what, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go in and do it all. So I did 20 to 21 days liquid fast. In addition, I did Dr. Group's liver, candida, parasite, colon, the whole cleanse, in addition to not eating.
Wow.
So it's been wild. But I'm going to go for 30.
Shout out to Dr. Group. I've been on his cleanses. Really good stuff.
We're going to do some stuff together. He's wonderful.
So you've probably lost a ton of weight.
I have lost some weight. And you know what else? It's amazing how well you sleep when you're not eating and how much energy I'm sprinting up hills. Like I have more energy than my 9-year-old.
That's impressive. And you're drinking your own period blood now.
I am drinking my own moon blood. It's rich in stem cells, iron, nutrients. It's something that I started back when I was training tantra in Thailand. And it's a ritual we do. We believe there's power in it. There's stem cells in it. There's iron. There's vitality. And so we don't want to lose that. Now, if you're eating clean, it should be good, right? So for the average person, I'd probably say don't do it because people are going to say, oh, it's waste. But no, it's rich. Blood is life, right? And Dr. Group and I had these conversations. It's good that I took a little pause. He actually said during my giving birth and breastfeeding, it's good. But now I'm back on it. So
wow,
better than ever. I feel great. And the moon blood actually tastes kind of sweet. So it's.
Do you just drink it straight up?
I have my moon cup. I just put it back. I'm not even joking.
Like a shot?
It's like a shot. And I sell the moon cups on my site. They're made out of tree rubber. A lot of people are like, you're drinking out plastic. I said, no, it's tree rubber. You shouldn't be using pads or tampons. I know this wasn't what we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
Even cotton. Did you know that cotton is the most heavily sprayed material or product, if you will?
Really?
So why would you want pesticides and herbicides and all those metals and toxins in your womb, in your uterus, in your cervix? They're showing that even like people who come to my retreat, I give this long lecture about it. They start using moon cups. 10 years later, they go up and they still find traces of cotton in the uterus. So that's just chemicals,
that's
right?
Insane.
And what is the number one most avoidable surgery for women? The uterus, the prolapsed uterus. Remember, if your doctor tells you, hey, we need to remove your uterus, get a second opinion. They're not getting paid unless they're removing things from you. So we have a protocol to help women not have that happen.
I didn't know that about cotton. I used to use Q-tips. That's probably terrible for you.
It's probably not good either. But your ear, yes, very not as good. But it obviously no chemicals in the body. But imagine if you were sticking a Q-tip up your lingam or something. Like it's a bad thing for women to have that because women are getting what? Cervical cancer, uterine cancer. I wonder why. Like if you do the math, it's kind of mathing, as my son would say.
What about condoms? Do you recommend guys using condoms?
I do not. Again, the same things, the spermicides, the herbicides, the plastics that are used in making it. It's just, first of all, it's actually disruptive to the yoni, which is the Sanskrit word for vagina, if you're joining us again. It disrupts the microbiome. And once that's disrupted, women have the very fun thing that you've dealt with as a man, if you've been with a woman, a yeast infection, right? And then it just gets worse and worse before it gets better. So why would you want those chemicals, those toxins, those pollutants in your body? The yoni needs to, it's an acidic environment. A lot of people forget that. And so that's why the miracle of birth is so amazing, right? Because sperm has to fight against the acid in the body to make it up there, right? So you're a miracle. So am I.
Yeah.
So no condoms. Lambskin is another alternative. But if you want to study the actual tantra practice, we teach the mastery of sexual energy, which is implosive ejaculations. So semen retention, pulling the semen back in the body, and also family planning for women to actually track their cycles and take their temperature and know when they're going to be ovulating and fertile. And you can have sex in those windows and nothing is certain.
Hey guys, shout out to today's sponsor, Kinsta. Running an online business is already a challenge. Your website hosting shouldn't make it harder, and I've been there, dealing with slow load times, confusing dashboards, and unreliable support. That's why I switched over to Kinsta, and it's been a game changer for my brand. Since moving to Kinsta, my site loads faster, runs smoother, and I don't have to stress about downtime. Their intuitive dashboard makes managing everything simple, and their 24/7 expert support means I always have real people whenever to help when I need it. Kinsta's built for performance with blazing fast speeds, enterprise-level security, and 37 global data centers to ensure your site reaches audiences quickly. They also handle free migrations, so switching is effortless, and if you ever get a traffic spike, Kinsta automatically scales to keep your site online when it matters most. I'm not the only one who trusts Kinsta. TripAdvisor, NASA, Indeed, and over 120,000 businesses rely on Kinsta for their WordPress hosting. So if you want hosting that works, just make the switch to Kinsta today. Get your first month free. They'll even handle the migration for you. Just visit kinsta.com/DSH to get started. That's KINSTA.com/DSH.
Right? But you're pretty certain that you're going to be good. So, and then if you're practicing with a tantric man who's pulling in his ejaculation, then you don't need to wear a condom. Why would you? Because in pre-cum, there's no sperm in pre-cum. Pre-cum is just seminal fluids from the seminal vesicle, but it's not actually, which is lubrication, but it's not actually the sperm. The sperm only happens when you feel that pulsation. Is that a word? I don't know. Sounds like one. That you feel in the testicles. And once that happens, then it shoots up the vas deferentia and comes out, and then it mixes with the other prostate fluids, etc. And that's what makes the sperm, if you will, the ejaculation.
Well, pre-cum is just urine, right?
They say that's actually an interesting dynamic. They say, yeah, it does come from the urethra. So it is fluids, if you will, but it is not. There's so many claims that you can get pregnant with pre-cum, but it's just fluid. It's lubrication fluid, essentially, and it doesn't become sperm until you get that actual ejaculation that moves everything up from the epididymis, where the sperm sits for 72 days. Then it flows up the vas deferentia, mixes in with the Cowper's gland fluids, the prostate fluids, and then it comes out. And then that whole combination, which we know sperm is rich in, energy, it's minerals, as well as amino acids, protein, which is why, some men consume it.
Yeah. Do you recommend men consume their own sperm?
I think they should, I think, again, all sperm is not equivalent. All semen is not equivalent, rather. Like, how are you eating? Are you putting pharmaceuticals into your body? Are you drinking alcohol? The tantric men don't do that. So if they happen to lose sperm, they lose ejaculation. It's not an inject. They don't pull up their semen. Then for them, it's okay to top it off. And a lot of men will, because they believe that that's life force. And they believe that in drinking that, they're preserving some of their life force rather than just losing it, right? Because how do you feel after you've had an ejaculation? Most men feel what? Tired. There's in modern sexology, it's what we call the refractory period, where the body, you cannot just straight away have sex again.
Yeah.
I've dated professional athletes most of my adult life, been very lucky. And those men are some of the fittest, craziest, like freaks of nature. And even them, they need 30 seconds, a minute, something. They can't immediately get an erection and go again. So we know that is what? An energy loss. So every time you ejaculate, you're losing energy, AKA vital life force. So a tantric man knows that and says, hey, if I had an accident, if you will, and oopsie, I didn't retain my semen, I lost it, he's going to drink it to hopefully pull in some of the life force. So
yeah, because we've only got a limited amount of ejaculations, right?
Correct. So you've maybe listened to Montauk too, right?
What is it, 5,000 or?
Yeah, I think they say so. How I was trained in my lineage is that every man and woman has a certain amount of ojas, OJAS. I'm going to get t-shirts that say God ojas, but I think I'll send you one. You'll wear it. God ojas, and it's like you get a certain amount of life force, and it's like gas. Once you run out, there's no more gas in the car, and you can't fill up. Right? There's no refueling station for ojas. So when you run out, you're done. And for every man and woman, it's a little different. Some people reach 80, 90, some people 50. And all that is in conjunction with your vital energy, your life force. So that's why Montauk Chia has a rule for how many times a day you should have an ejaculation or have sex, which for most men, sex is equal to ejaculation, which we know it's not, but for the modern man, it is, right? So when you're young, you can ejaculate more. In your 20s, you're fine. Go ham with it, right? Once you get 30s, it's like once a week. 40s, it's like every other week. 50s, it's like a month. 60s and beyond, it's like every other few months. You know, you don't want to lose that because that's your time here on this planet,
right? And
your vital energy. And what happens to men in their 50s, 60s? Who do they have to go see?
Psychologist.
That too, but in regards to like taking a pill, right? They have to go see the doctor for the little red or blue pill, not red pill, hilarious. Red pill peeps, but the blue pill, right? Yeah. They go to see that. Why does that happen? Think about that, right? Why is it that, well, now it's sad because men in their 20s now are having to go see it, and that's the estrogen, all the other things. So so the tantrics figured out we can actually preserve your erections. You don't have to go see your doctor to get the blue pill. You can create your own blue pill, your own Viagra in yourself. And that's by ejaculating, retaining your semen, or as Montauk Chia or the greats like David Data and stuff, they do it only on holidays and special occasions, if you will. Yeah,
there's a lot of guys struggling in their 20s, 30s.
It's crazy, ED. Right? ED, like I've never had men in my practice come to me within the last few years that have said like, hey, I can't get an erection or I can only last for 10 seconds. It's like, then I'll say, how old are you? Because a lot of this is email in the first, and they say like 20 or 19 or 21. I'm like,
crazy.
I still get shocked. I know I shouldn't be, but it's like you expect this, you know, when you're in 50s and 60s. So Tantra is like the natural Viagra. We can keep men vira. We can keep them strong and fertile, you know, in their 60s, 70s. I know, you know, like Dr. Sabi, I think was an example of that. He was still having kids.
Really?
When he had, I mean, I don't know exactly, don't quote me, but he had a myriad of children and was still extremely virile, plant-based, of course. So I know my meat eaters hate me for that one, but you just have to agree to disagree on that.
Do you think the plant-based helps the sex life?
I do. You know, there's a huge, like, I won't say like I'm vegan because I'm not. I do eat honey and some other things. I listen to my body, but I've been plant-based since 6th grade.
Wow.
Before it was trending, and I've said it, I'm in my 40s. I'm not ashamed to say that, but so this has been a lifestyle for me, right? Of course, when I was younger, I wasn't doing it correctly. I wasn't educated. I went to the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, started understanding nutrition and how the body works in 2011. So when you look at, this is what I'll say to like the meat eaters who are like, real men can't get an erection unless they have steak. You're kind of false. I'm sure you can get an erection. And it's all about circulation, vasodilation, and the circulatory system, right? How does the circulatory system work? We know that it provides circulation throughout the entire body. What needs healthy circulation to get an erection? Your lingam does. The end of story, right? Yes, there's a mental component to getting an erection. That's where a lot of the challenges with and trauma and other things, performance anxiety comes in. But the physicality of that is if you're putting meat in your body, especially red meat or pork, that stays in the body for 7 to 10 days, pork being the longest one. So your body is working harder to process that, to digest it, and to eliminate that, which ties up your circulatory system. So if you're having challenges, I say just test it, remove meat, and see how your circulation starts operating now. And for the tantric men, like my colleagues, my masters, they would just take bee pollen and sort of eat bee pollen all day because it's naturally virile. It gives them that stamina, and they weren't eating meat. And my gurus were 50s, 60s and had no challenges with erections.
Wow.
So I personally think the plant-based, definitely for women. Like I understand men have this attachment to like the Shiva energy and eating meat, and I need meat to be, have the testosterone. I get it. I understand it's hard, but for women, it's really not good. Again, we talked about acidity. So if you're putting naturally acidic things, meat's acidic, so is dairy. You're putting that inside an already acidic environment. How do you think, like, I always say vegans taste better, and there's men out there who can vouch for me.
Really?
yeah, of course. Would you want your woman to eat more acid when her yoni, her vagina, is already acidic? That's going to create more acidic environment. If she's eating like alkaline things, that's going to balance her acid levels, right? And that's going to make her taste sweeter.
Yeah, because some men complain about the smell sometimes.
That's a huge complaint. Thank you for bringing it up. Because men don't want to go down. Yeah. Especially a lot of men, they're uncomfortable. They don't really know what to do. They've watched Prawn, or I'm sure you're going to buzz this out. Yeah. And so they're like, ABC, whatever the weird stuff they do, right? Like that is what men tell me. I just do the ABCs. I'm like, God, please stop. Make it stop. But yeah, they don't want to go down because it doesn't smell good. It doesn't taste good. And they blame it on like bad hygiene. It could be that. Some people's hygiene is questionable, right? But what you put in comes out. And so it's what you're eating. And then also the products, Summer's Eve, all that douche. And I use natural oils. And do I smell? I don't use deodorant. Have I smelled?
Really?
Yeah. No, I stopped using deodorant back in 2011 in my tantra training.
Holy crap.
Yeah. I did a lot of purification similar to the cleanses and things we're doing. And, you know, once you get that energy out of you and you release the trauma and the shame, it's a huge killer in intimacy, then your body doesn't hold on to the smells. If you're not putting toxic things in the body, then you're not going to emit odors. So now if I'm detoxing, there could be some, you know, slight imbalance in pH because I'm getting rid of toxins.
Yeah.
So then you might want to get a little crystal rock. But no, I haven't used deodorant since.
Do you use body wash?
I use 17 and Dr. Bronner's. I love Dr. Bronner's. Sorry.
I like Bronner's.
Yeah, that's all I use.
The one I
There's
use
nothing in it. It's like, I don't even think it works, but I still use it.
Well, it's all natural.
It's all natural. I'm joking. But there's like no smell really. Even says vanilla or lavender, you're like, patchouli. It's just like, so, you know, so that's what I use. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't use the Sephora's and all that. No.
Yeah. Do you use perfume?
I don't. Perfume is, I won't say I don't ever. When I go to the Middle East, there's some amazing like Ide perfumes that have stronger oils that are like more oil based. And some of those I have a hard time walking away because I smell the oils. But when you're talking about the olfactory, did I said that right? Yes. The olfactory system, right? Our natural like pheromones, right? How like if you meet your partner, there's something about them that you're supposed to be naturally attracted to them, right? In fact, I get hit on more when I'm cycling, when I'm on my menstruation. I get more DMs. I get more, you know, looks in the grocery store, more guys coming up to me.
Really?
Why? I'm fertile AF, right? And men, that should be a shirt too, right? Fertile in my 40s. But it's not very common these days anymore, right?
Not in your 40s.
Not in your 40s.
Let alone 30,
Let alone
30s.
your 30s. But I've never been on birth control. I don't eat meat. I steam my yoni. I drink my moon blood. So I do all the right things. But no, men are definitely more attracted to women when they're on their cycle because men are primal. You guys, you're like, whoa, she's fertile. I want to attack her. You know, I want to, in a good way.
Yep.
This is all safe. Ravage her, you know? And so when you're putting on perfume, we know it's mostly chemicals, right? It's man-made. That's messing with your natural pheromones that make a man want to come up to you. And same with a woman. In fact, I've seen some of the testings on, it's kind of gross, but like sweaty shirts, they put them in bags and they have women smell them and find out who they're attracted to. And then they show the person in real life and they're like, oh yeah, I would totally be attracted to that person. It's crazy. So all this stuff makes sense. We're disrupting that. And I think that's also a part of the plan, right?
Yeah.
Spray on these things that keep men away, keep them away from mating. So women stay infertile. They're not getting married. They're not having children. It's, you know, have your fun with the conspiracy theories. But
it's a big business and big margins too on it.
Huge. So I love essential oils. There's so many good ones. I know I sound like such a hippie now, but there's some amazing ones, especially when I was in Egypt and Morocco and Turkey. There's some really more like ouds and stronger ones if you like that versus like your lavender and orange. There's some great ones. And also just if you are not putting chemicals in your body and you're eating clean, you're not like, I will never forget this. God, I have to go back memory lane. My ex, who was 25 when I dated him. He was 6'8". I was about 15 years older than him. He was a basketball player. Black, dimples. Oh, he was everything. He was fun. Sorry, I had to go back there. But I remember smelling him and I was just like, oh, there's something about him. And he ate a bunch of chemicals too. And I helped him a lot with that. He changed a lot. He started shopping at Whole Foods. He still hits me up. He lives out here now. He's like, nice. I go to Whole Foods. And I'm like, great. But anyways, he smelled so good and I love that. And you're supposed to like be attracted to a person because of how their chemistry and their pheromones, what they're putting off. And when we're wearing perfumes, we're masking
I can
that.
see that. I love, this is kind of random, but I love the smell of my dogs. You know, I wouldn't say I'm like sexually attracted, but like I'm definitely like.
Do you feed them really clean?
Super clean, raw
like
diet.
raw diet. Yeah.
All raw.
Like they make it, those food companies, they're super clean.
Maeve.
Yeah, and exactly, I've heard of them. So yeah, you should like the natural scents are good. And I think if there's an imbalance, and that's when you start being like, oh, you need like I don't shower much either. I should like, this is probably TMI, but I'll just put it out there. Like I shower a few times a month.
That's it?
Yeah, because, okay, at least once a week. We'll say that, once a week. Now, if I'm going in my infrared and ozone saunas, I'm showering those days, okay? I'm not nasty. But if I'm not, and I don't really sweat much, some people do. My body type is Vata, if you know anything about Ayurveda, which I do. So I'm drier, I'm air, and so I don't really have much like sweat. Yeah. Where the Kapha people, you might be Kapha looking at your eyes.
I'm kind of oily, yeah.
You're Kapha, which is water and earth.
Yeah.
So you might need to shower a little more. But like, I think we shower too much. Well, the shower, first of all, unless you have a good water filtration system, and then how perfect are those? You're just putting straight toxins and metals on your body, you know, from the water system. If you wouldn't drink it, why would you let your lingam touch it or your yoni touch it?
Right.
That's crazy to me, you know? So I don't shower much because I don't smell, and you can clean the appropriate parts, you know, take the hooker bath, if you will, and you're good to go. But yeah, that's just me. I want people I want someone attracted to me and smell me. If I need a shower, they'll tell me go shower and I'll gladly do it. But yeah, I think we're just masking, and a lot of the stuff is diet and chemicals, what we're putting on. And that's probably why women maybe don't want to drink guys' cum, you know, because sometimes it doesn't taste good.
Yeah. Because
they're taking pharmaceuticals, they're drinking all the time, they're doing drugs, they're eating processed diet, or even a lot of meat. Like, I don't like a lot of meat if I'm drinking my guy's semen. Yeah. I taste it. It doesn't taste good. But yeah, the eating more fruits and vegetables, it does change it. So the watermelon, the pineapples, it does change the taste of it, and it's more pleasant. A lot of women don't like drinking guys' cum, you know, because they think it's gross, and it probably tastes gross. To me, I'm taking their life force. I'm getting some of their Shiva energy. So I'm like, can I drink it, please? Sign me up. And guys go crazy for that.
Yeah, guys must love you.
Yeah, they do. But, you know, that's why I'm very selective with who I let in. And, you know, but yeah, because I'm like what every guy wants. Yeah. And so, but I want to encourage more women to do that. So men, if you change your diet and you don't drink as much, maybe eat some raw around the time you're going to be with your girl, and she'll appreciate that. And then she'll maybe be more prone to you know, drink up.
Are you drinking their urine too?
I haven't done, now that's an interesting thing. I have not done that. That one is a little bit different. The tantrics, we do drink urine, something I started when we first started my training. Of course, again, I'm going to preface this by saying we did a lot of cleansing and detoxing before we started drinking bodily fluids. But what I did find is that I just felt more clear. I was sleeping better. Things were just healing. And you kind of start to like smell your urine, and you kind of start to like want to drink it, because it's like healing. And you know, Dr. Group talks a lot about this, so we don't even need to go into all that. But yeah, I've never drank my partner's, but I don't know. I'm not saying never say never. Like he's into it works for him, and does what's into me and it works for him, you know, us, and who knows?
Golden shower.
Exactly.
What about anal? You were a fan of that? That's a controversial one.
Anal, I think, so you have anal for women and men, right?
Yeah.
When you think of anal with a man, you automatically think what?
Sex.
Homosexual. Yeah. Right? You're not thinking heterosexual man, because it's very like, this is taboo. I think for women, it's totally different. I'll pop back to men in a second. Okay. Most women, I feel like their archetypes can't totally handle it. Because in my work, we have sexual archetypes. I'll send you the quiz. You should take it. You and your peeps should take it. But it kind of tells you about with your astrological sign and how your energy is sexually. these are important questions. I think we're going to get into that later. But at any rate, so for women, anal, I don't think it's for most women. Because for us, I think there's been a lot of religious conditioning and programming about this is not the place. There's one hole, the holy hole, if you will. And that's the only place you insert. But at any rate, a lot of women, it kind of feels dirty to them. So they don't want to do it. Also, if you're well endowed, it can be very challenging. It's a thing, and I can train women how to relax into that because there is a science to it. Some women who are really high, if you've met these women who are kind of bees all the time and they're just high, kind of like masculine, kind of like stressed, maybe they're execs, anal for them is actually really good because Apanavayu is like a downward moving energy. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
No.
And so that's a downward moving energy. When you have anal, it kind of like pushes that energy up. So it's like the yin, the yang, the Shiva, the Shakti. It balances out those women. They become softer. So it's good for them. Most women are staying away from it. They want a present or something if they're going to go there. For men, I think there's a lot of taboo around the prostate, right? And men are like, why does it? They'll tell me like, I had someone put a thumb in there, or I had someone jammed fingers up there and it hurt at first, but then it felt so good. It was the most intense orgasm of my climax of my life. But then I felt weird asking for it because like, I didn't even ask for it and she gave it to me. I'm just telling you different things clients have said, right? So the bottom line is that's the prostate, right? The prostate for men is the equivalent to the G-spot for women. Extremely pleasureful. Most women only experience clitoral climax. That's all they can do. Majority, 70% of women only can have a clitoral climax. They can't have an internal one. So they never really finding that G-spot. They're never finding the other deeper ones. So if you've ever had a G-spot climax or orgasm, it's like out of this world. You love it. And for women, it's so pleasurable. It's the same thing for men.
Yeah.
But why is there a stigma around men receiving it? I think one, it's attached to the homosexuality, right? Men feel a certain type of way about that area. Like that's only for dumping, detoxing. That's it. A lot of men want to explore this pleasure more, but they would not feel comfortable telling a partner about it. Maybe an escort or someone that they're paying or casually sleeping with, but their wife, it's harder for a man to say that because I think there's a huge level of shame, again, from religious stuff and also because of the connection to it being homosexual.
Yeah.
So, but for men, it can be very transformative. Like it's a release and it all has to be done with a lot of care. And I think this is a hard thing. Like, how do you talk about sex and pleasure and things with your partners? Most people are not talking about sex. They just go into the bedroom and have it and hope for the best, right? They feel weird about saying like, can you put your fingers in my butt? like even just saying it sounds crazy, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a huge problem.
That makes sense. Do you recommend partners sleep together?
Yes and no. I would say if you want your relationship or marriage to last, no. I don't think you should sleep together overnight. If you're having sex, you cuddle, you do the thing, great. Then I think that you guys should go to your separate rooms. If you're financially abundant and you have resources galore, then I think separate housing is the most beneficial because it's like my work is the science of sexual polarity. People want to name it what they want because it fits their narrative. But I teach people how to have lasting, passionate intimacy, not just a contract that keeps you married where you're not having sex or you're paying hookers. Like I want this to really happen. This is the main component. If you have two negative batteries and you put them in a toy, will it turn on? No. Why? Because there's not the polarity charge, right? You need what? A positive and a negative. And then it works. So what happens is in marriages and or relationships, things get mundane. You start off in the honeymoon stage. You want to rip your partner's clothes off. Everything is exciting. She could tell you to go mow the lawn. You'll do it with cartwheels. She's putting on her best lingerie for you. She's wearing her push-up bra. She's waxing. She's doing all the fun stuff. As you guys sort of get out of the honeymoon phase and start of slipping into their regular life, things become just more copacetic. You're like, yeah, I don't really want to push for sex. A man will not do it because a man doesn't want to feel rejected. He hates having to beg for sex. I can promise you, any men out there, if he feels like he has to beg his wife or partner for sex, it's a turnoff. He'd rather just go find a hooker or hook up with someone. It's less work, right? A woman will turn down sex a lot because once they've been married, and if she's had children, the hormones might be in balance. She might have been on birth control. The list goes on. And she's also secured the bag, if you will. Right. So she's like, why do I have to do the sex stuff anymore? I thought I just had to do that to get him, to get the ring and get married. And now I have that and I have the kids. And so it's kind of like this, things just start getting lackadaisical. And what happens is you get into patterns. A man's gone all day, in theory, comes back, eats, answers emails, maybe goes and sits on the sofa, watches his TV or a podcast, zones out, because men, Shiva, need zone out time. They need nothingness, right? Women need everythingness, right? We're always talking, we're always changing, we're always moving. It's very different, right? Yeah. How we operate. When you get home from work, your wife or your lady wants to come home and be like, hey, honey, how's your day? Tell me this, and you're like, what? I just want to come home to silence. Yeah. I want nothingness. I want to tell you I love you and chill and decompress, right? So in the relationships, and when you're sleeping together, over time, you start to see that the polarity starts to weakens, because if you believe in energy bodies, which you should, because they exist, at night, when you're sleeping together, your auras or energy bodies kind of merge together. And then what happens if you have grandparents or great grandparents? Did you notice that they kind of start looking alike? You start seeing like, and a lot of people will say this, like, why does everyone look alike? Like that weren't in the same, didn't come from the same family, were married into the family. What happens is over time, your auras, your energy bodies, because you have 5 bodies, right? They start merging because you've slept together for so many years, which weakens the polarity, what turns most couples into what? Friends.
Wow.
You've seen it happen.
Yeah, there's a lot of sexless marriages.
Most of them are, right? We know the stats on that. 1 to 2 times a month once you've gotten married. Then we know Ashley Madison exists, right? It's the cheating website for married people. Let me just say that again. And then 70% of those people that are on Ashley Madison identify as Christian or faith-based.
Wow.
Fascinating, right?
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's high.
So we say the tantrics, there's something to what we say. It comes from the principles of the Kama Sutra, which is not just a sex manual. It's actually a manual for living life, for healthy relationships, for keeping that polarity exciting and alive. And it just recommends that you have separate sleeping spaces. So even if you want to stay in the same house, and even if you can't afford a room, maybe if some person's traveling, that's really great. Or some person sleeps in the spare room or whatever, you mix it up. And it's also very exciting. Like think back to when you were dating and you went over to your spouse's house or your partner's house and you felt like, oh, this is her energy. I wonder, like, what's in her cabinet and what's like, ooh, it's exciting for men, right?
Yeah.
Because you have all this testosterone, you're conquering, you're making this happen, this podcast, Then you go to a woman's place and it's just like soft and there's like stuff everywhere. You're like, she has a lot of shit. And my house is like very minimal for most men, right? Every man's different a little, but it's that energy and it's exciting and it's what keeps that polarity alive. So separate sleeping for sure.
I'm with you on that.
Yes.
Going back to the Christian stuff real quick. Yeah. So there's a lot of non-virgin Christians.
Yes. I mean, I think that this is, I don't really know all the details and stats on this, but I think a lot of this has to do with the modernization of normalizing like social media as like a way of life and as like normalcy in regards to like sexual marketing and things like that. We see this everywhere, right? Like we put a girl on a cover. There's this one guy, Wes Watson, right? And Angie's my friend and stuff. And like you saw his page and before she went down there and now he uses her on the cover of stuff, right? And those posts get what? Millions, right? Because she's a baddie. And then just him, it's just muscles. No offense. I know that's hard work, but it's like, men love the feminine energy, sex sells. So I think now we're in this day and age when like sex is sold, but then we have these like Christian principles and faith-based values that's like, you don't have sex till you're married, but you're in a culture where everyone's fucking.
Yeah.
You turn on the television, it's sex. You turn on the music, it's sex. You turn on a music video, it's sex. You go to the movies, there's a sex scene. Everything, there's a sex scene. And then all of a sudden these Christians miraculously are just going to stay virgins. When we know that kids are getting their first dose of porn from the ages of 9 to 11, and they're stumbling on that in a household phone or home or a phone or computer of someone they know and trust, which means what? They didn't go looking for it. It was just there. So I think that has a lot to do with why there's not very many virginal Christians who are virgins anymore. I mean, I'm sure they do exist out there, but I don't think there's that many virgins altogether. I think the more extreme religions, there's more, Muslims and things like that, and the arranged marriages, it's supposedly pretty norm, but even that you see because the arranged marriages, by the way, is the most successful marriage today, right?
Is it?
Yes, it is. And that stems from the Hindus, the Indian culture. That's where the Kama Sutra came from. So the Kama Sutra was actually a manual that was handed down from generation to generation on their wedding night. Because imagine if we were set up, I'm a virgin, I'm 19 or whatever, I'm meeting you, you're supposedly a virgin too. So how do we know what to do? There's no social media, there's no movies, there's no rap videos. So we have to figure this shit out, right? So we figured that out from this manual. That in the manual, the Kama Sutra, it's a 64 classical arts and text, which was a text that was derived on how to make yourself more interesting for your spouse so that they wanted to F you for future years to come, and how to keep the lasting love alive. But in that was also the sexual aspect, and that's what gets the most press around the Kama Sutra. It's a whole marriage rule book. So that was given to them on their wedding night. And it was like, oh, this is what we do. So in arranged marriages, you stayed virginal, right? And arranged marriages today, we know now it's a business transaction more than anything. It's to keep the wealthy, to keep the money in the family.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Yeah, my grandparents were arranged.
Were they?
Yeah.
What ethnicity?
Chinese. Yeah,
Wow.
I think it's common over there.
Exactly.
Or back in the day, at least.
In the day. And there's another, they're also more arranged marriages it's a big thing too.
Yeah.
I guess it's also to keep the family genes and money, strong. And so you don't really marry outside of your Indian culture. And I mean, I think now things are becoming more and more lax, but yeah.
Yeah. There's not many virgins these days, man.
There's not. If you find one, it's like needle in the haystack.
I haven't found any.
You haven't?
No, have you? I mean, in the US at least.
Oh, wait, no. I've had a few guys that messaged me and said I'm a virgin.
Oh, guys are different. I'm talking about girls.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Guys, I feel like if you're a young guy in your 20s, it's more common.
It's more common because men don't have the interpersonal or intrapersonal skills anymore. They, I hate that term incels, but it's kind of like what's happened, sadly. They're like at home, they're in their basement, if you will, painting a nice picture, but they rather pay a girl online to talk to them and be their girlfriend. And a lot of guys will reach out to me and say, this is what I'm doing. I want help. I don't even know where to start. I don't know where to begin. And then this is where we see the ED problems challenging, right? You can't even talk to a girl and you think that you're going to actually have a chance to last a minute in bed with a girl. You've never seen one. You've never even talked to one. If I touch you, my sexual energy is going to pull you. You're going to have an ejaculation in your pants. Like I've had that happen before with guys. Yeah.
Just touching them?
Yeah. Just like breath work, like putting my hand here, like right here in second chakra, like not on you, but like right here between second and third and in the heart. Gone.
Are you serious?
I promise you.
A hands-free orgasm.
Yeah. And it's just because listen, sorry, there's something in my eye, but my energy is profound, right? And if a guy isn't used to a woman, most women have lost the touch with their femininity today, right? So when they are around that, then I'm also an energy master. So my energy is pretty powerful. It's just, they're not being touched at all, maybe. Then I just do this, clothes on, everything. It's just over.
Wow.
It's wild.
Did you do that on Destiny?
Yeah. Dude.
During the debate?
Man, Destiny's special. I told everyone that he was getting, strapped on and gone to town, and nobody believed me. And then I saw all the stuff coming up and saying like, oh yeah, he is. And yeah, I mean, Destiny is interesting. I think there's a lot of trauma there that's unresolved. I think he's a very intelligent man. I would never take that away.
Yeah.
Never. And so that's the thing about me. I'm honest. I'll say like, yes, this is, but also for a man to have, honestly, when I see him, I see a woman. I don't see a man.
He has feminine energy.
Very feminine. It's crazy. And that's why his ex-wife, Melanie, or what was her name? Not Melania.
About,
yeah, that chick. She got mad because to me, was very masculine, even though she looked like cute and petite, right? She was so masculine. I was like, whoa. And then when I met Destiny, I was like, oh yeah, checks out. It made sense because remember, you can say like, oh yeah, I don't know like how I can be more feminine. And it's like, well, if your man is feminine, you're lost. There's no chance. You're masculine. It just happens.
Yeah.
It's like if you put in 2 batteries the wrong way, it's not going to turn on. So it's just a law of polarity. If you're extremely masculine, your woman has to become feminine. It's a shift energetically. It'll happen. But men sometimes are afraid to just be like, afraid to like say, I'm going to be the Shiva. I'm going to say no. I'm going to say, hey, honey, I respect you. I love you. But here's how it's going to go down. And I love your feedback or whatever. But like, Andrew Tate says a lot more hardcore than I do. But like, if men actually did that, women would be like, oh, okay. This is what's happening.
That's how it used to be. That's
how it used to be before we had all the, identify as this. And now today I'm cutting off my dick and you're going to give me your extra rights now. It's like, what? Yeah.
Plus a lot of females are in their masculine energy now because they're making a ton of money.
They're making so much money. Do you know how many women come to me for coaching? They're like making so much money. They're like, God, I watched you walk into the Tony Robbins event and you were just like wowed the room. I'm like, I did? I was just like walking in my Shakti land doing me. And they're like,
your aura.
They're like, everyone was looking at you. I was like, really? I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'm happy. And they're like, how do we get what you have? I'm like, what do you mean? And they're like, I'm the CEO. I run this company. And they were telling me all their accolades and I own this home and this car and this. And then they're like, and I just want what you have. And I'm like, well, what do I have? And they're like, you're just feminine. You just exude it. When people see you, they just like run to you. And I'm like, yeah, well, you got to give up control. Like,
right.
You got to surrender. And they're like, oh, shoot, man, like this is going to be work, right?
Yeah.
But it's so hard for women to do that because once women get a taste of like control and money and their own, what's the word? Independence. Not that you have to be codependent, but it's like interdependence, right? Why can't we have that? Then they're like, what do I need a man for? And the longer a woman goes without a man, the less she wants him.
Yeah.
And you see that happening, right? Women aren't having kids anymore. They're not getting married. They're being cat moms. They're, just that's it. That's their career focused. And then they end up later in life and they say they're happier. Now the studies do say apparently that they're happier, but I'm like happier compared to what? Sure. My life before my son wasn't happy. I had a very intense life, but if I never had my son, how would I have anything to compare that to, right? And then the other studies are showing that women are losing life years because they're having children and they're taking care of a man. And you know what the happiest demographic is, right? It's married men.
Is it?
Yeah, even though they have their challenges, men are actually pretty simple, right? Men don't file for divorce, right? Yes, there's a lot of variables, but if a man's basic needs are being taken care of, and he might have to beg for sex, but he'd rather do that in the end, most men, not all men, most men, right? Like your average guy, then go out, date again, lose weight, do all this, court, and, divorce and kids, and he's just like, because men really do need women. They do. I know Andrew Tate says they don't. People say they don't, but men need that feminine energy. They want to be like taken care of. And I'm not saying financially, I'm saying nurtured. That's why there's so many mommy son fetishes now. Because men had never got that. If you didn't people ask me all the time, how can I become your son? Because they see the relationship that I have with Amadi.
Yeah.
And they see how I'm giving him energy, he gets body work daily, he gets this. He's like very well adjusted. Like if you see him, he's like, on the court, he's doing push-ups, he's Muay Thai, but then he's super connected and he's emotionally, his EQ's off the charts, right? I breastfed him for almost a decade, right?
Yeah.
And I pour energy into him, and most men never get that. So what happens when you don't get something? There's 2 things, right? You either go the other way and say, I never want that. So you'll go for a masculine woman, right? Because you never had mom for feminine energy. Or you'll go the other way, right? Hyperthyroidism.
Yep.
It's the same dynamic. So then you'll go obsessive and say, I need that mother sexual fetish. And that's where the men, this is a very popular sexual fetish, by the way. I didn't know if you knew that.
The mommy son.
Yes. Daddy has kind of always been. We know that. But the mommy son one is huge now.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. I have guys like, well, DM me. Can you breastfeed me?
No.
Can you, it's crazy. Like, how do you adopt me? My mom I never got a hug from her. She never told me she loved me. I never saw, I just always they've never had it. So then they go looking for the extreme of that, or they go looking for the opposite.
Oh my God.
And that's why I think we have so many problems with what I don't believe in, quote, toxic masculinity, but with that energy of like, nothing's wrong. It's like, come on. Yeah, you have to be Shiva, but Shiva always had his counterpart Shakti. He always had, Parvati, like she was always there. She was always like Krishna and his gopis, which is like were his like hookers, if you will, his groupies. This was like their energy, their feminine energy fed him, right? And men need feminine energy. Like they need it.
Yeah.
They don't need us to pay the bills, but they need the more emotional, that kind of energetic connection. Does that make sense?
No, it does.
Yeah.
Have you ever been cheated on before?
Yeah. Why? This is a question that I think is kind of, a lot of people like feel shame around answering it.
Yeah.
But we know like the odds are like, even if you get married, it's a 50% chance that it's going to last, give or take. It's vacillating here and there, depending on if we're having like made up pandemics or whatnot's going on, right? Scamdemics. But so, the odds are that you will get a divorce, sadly, or 50-50, right? And then we know the number one reason for divorce is always like right at the top, money and infidelity.
Right.
It's always that. And most of the time they're entwined, right? So the chances are most people have been cheated on. I have been cheated on. That was a very like, the tantrics look at cheating differently, right? We see it as like an ego, like a lesson to our ego. Like we don't look at sex the way other people do. People look at sex as like the one all is all. Like if they cheat on me, they don't love me.
Right.
No, that's not true. In fact, I encourage couples who have been cheated on to stay together. I don't think it is different for men than women. I'll also caveat that. I don't think that just because someone cheats on you, it's the end of the marriage. I actually think it could be the beginning. A lot of times cheating is just an unresolved need, an unmet need, a cry for help. Or now there are serial cheaters. Sure. I'm not talking about them. There are people who, narcissists, whatever, people throw that term around like it's, water, but they do exist. The point is, cheating is devastating. Yes. Because why? Why is it? If you really think about it, for women, it's different. For women, we feel like we want to be like the center of your world, right? Like there's no other woman in the world. I'm a realist. I know if I'm dating, for instance, when I dated my ex, he was 6'8" with an 8-pack. Like, do I honestly think men were hitting on him with me there? So I knew with me there, I had straight men fangirling over him. Hey, what team do you play for, man? Blah, blah, blah. So can you imagine if I'm not there? Like, I understand that, but I also don't think like most women do. I understand if I'm with a taller, attractive, well-built man, my guy didn't have resources. That was the problem. Well, not the main problem. His EQ is also not great. But if he has resources too, you honestly think no other women are going to come after him? And I think sometimes women kind of lie to ourselves a lot. We want to think like, oh, he only has eyes for us. And men are also men. I don't think there's anything wrong with looking. I don't even think there's anything wrong with harmless flirting. I think it's actually very, very healthy. Now, I think there's a line that's like once you go past that can be damaging depending on what your rules are for your marriage or your relationship. And I believe every couple has to make their own rules. It's in fact one of the things I have my guests do when they come to my retreats. You got to make your own rules. So cheating, women look at it as like, he didn't choose me. There was someone who he thought was hotter, right?
Yeah.
I wasn't. And women always say, what, was she prettier than me? She'll always say some variation of that, right? Yeah. You know what I'm talking about. For a man, it's very different though. Men have this, if they're a healthy, balanced, testosterone, normal, everything is operating on all 4 cylinders. Cheating for a man is like death almost for them. It's the ultimate FU to their ego. In their mind, this is the same thing for a man if he can actually make a woman climax internally. That's the ultimate win in his ego. Because in his mind, there's no greater, I say this in my book, there's no greater like yes or flowers, if you will, for a man to know that he was able to bring his woman to pleasure and to ecstasy. So when a woman doesn't experience that, that also slowly chips away.
Yeah. Because
he's like, wait, I can't make that happen for her. I'm not the top G, right? Like I can't get her off, right? To quote Andrew, right? So that's a big thing. And so then the cheating is like someone else is doing that for her. Someone else is the, top G, the ultimate Shiva in my book, right? And is bringing her to pleasure. And for a man's ego, it's just crushed.
It's tough, yeah.
It's tough. So I think I do often tell women to stay with men if they're cheating, as long as there's no abuse and as long as there's a clear plan to solve the challenges, the unmet needs, and there's children and things like that involved. I do tell them to stay because most women think the grass is so much greener on the other side, right? I'm going to get a divorce. I'm going to live my best life. I'm going to do this and that. And then they get out there and they're like, what? Like the dating apps, the swiping left and right, the ghosting, the one night stand, the pay for play. It's insane. Like it's really nuts when you look at it. For men, I think for most men, it's a no. I think it's really challenging for a man to want to stay with a woman after she's cheated on him. I think, now I might get some hate for this. I think that if a man wants to stay with the woman when she's cheated, I think there's a slight imbalance in the sexual polarity dynamic where she had more of the Shiva energy and he had more of the feminine, and that makes him want to kind of chase her a little bit.
Yeah, that's what happened with Destiny.
Correct.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Correct. He was like pretty upset about the whole.
Well, they were open, and I don't know about open relationships personally. I don't think those could work for me.
I don't think they work. I think that they're good in theory. The tantrics do practice them, but I also say that like the tantrics practice them in a very like what are those things? The studies when they're giving drugs. Controlled. Thank you. Yeah. Controlled dynamic. Like for us, it was like. We did the open relationships because we wanted to test our ego and see how attached we are to ego. The question we asked ourselves every day at my school was, who am I? And that was our goal to find that out. Who am I? When you take away the identity, the ego, I'm a mom and this and that, take all that away, what's left? So for us, it was more a question is, can we have our spouse, our partner experience pleasure and not be moved in our ego by that? This was all done consensual. People knew. It wasn't like, it was all very open, almost like partners walking them over to the next person's house, saying a prayer and a blessing, leave. So this was all done and even that was always a disaster too. I felt like I would sit on the floor and watch grown men cry as they had just sent their woman off with another man. And I was like new to the island. I was like, this is crazy. Jeez. Like I've seen some wild stuff in my day, but this takes the cake. So open relationships, I don't think they work. I think most people are in open relationships. They just don't know it.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the problem.
I can see that. Could you date someone that was under 5 inches?
Great question.
No.
How much money's in their account? Like, honestly, like I thought about that. I was like, if he wasn't well endowed, was his wallet well endowed? Because then I could probably maybe forget about it.
So 5 inches, but a millionaire.
Maybe not 1 million. It'd have to be 1 million doesn't last much today, right? I have a child. I want to have more. So we need more than 1 million.
Okay.
So they'd have to have multiple millions for me to do 5 because I know my size and we talk about size in my book and I'm more of a medium. So I've been with a large. So I'm kind of partial to medium and large. I won't be that, I'm not that much of a like, I can only have this, but sexual compatibility is really important. I think this is a question that is never talked about in marriages or relationships. People just do it and say, let's see if this works. And then what happens after 6 to 9 months or the first year or two, that honeymoon phase, where's those hormones that keep you oxytocin, all the love hormones, the feel-good hormones, they start dissipating. And then it's like, the sex isn't working, but a lot of people don't know how to talk about sex with their partner.
Right.
And if you tell, a lot of people make the mistake of saying, that didn't feel good while they're having sex, or can you not do that? Women will get very sensitive, especially maybe if they're close to their cycle, things like that. They might be like, you're thinking about that hot girl with the fat ass you saw, yesterday. It's like, what? And a guy probably isn't, but like, that's how women think, right? We always are like, a lot of times women are not confident in who they are. So if a man critiques her sexually during sex and it's not like agreed upon, like this is role play, this is just for educational purposes, then it could hurt her. It's actually worse for men. I tell women this all the time. A man's ego is very fragile. And if the ego connected to his lingam, you will literally kill the relationship. If a man, for some God unknown reason, can't get an erection, we know it happens to every man at least once in his life.
Yeah.
So don't lie and say it's never happened, because we know the numbers. It will. And it's okay. That's why sometimes I feel like I shouldn't do this work, because people typecast me because of how I look, because I have giant breasts, because whatever the case may be, and because of my past. But the times that I want to give up the most in doing this work is like the times I'm like, no, I have to, because if we don't have these conversations, how can we evolve? How can we grow? We're just going to keep repeating the same patterns. Do you really want this for your children? No, right? Like, I want my son to have a healthy sex life.
Yeah.
And I am actually curating him for that now. And don't think any weird shit that some of those people are going to say. I am creating the foundation and the blueprint for how he has intimacy in the future. And I think people forget that. So with a man, if you say something about his, like, why aren't you erect, or this isn't working, or why do you always do this, or you're going too fast, like, you can really damage a guy's, like, his confidence in his lingam in the bedroom. And then after that, it's really hard to repair. So it's a very delicate dance of how you approach talking about sex in the bedroom. But my rule of thumb is, if you can't talk about sex with your partner or your spouse, you shouldn't be having it.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Last question. Could you be with someone that watches?
No, that's a no for me. I know the odds of that are probably pretty slim to none. Super low. I think a lot of people in the personal development space, and in like MySpace in regards to like the holistic healing tantra world, they're not privy to it, because they understand what it does to the brain and how it really ruins and destroys relationships. So I think that's why I'm more prone to be in these circles, because I know people are more like-minded, and that's the type of person I would attract. It's like the little white lie that you tell once. It just grows and grows and grows. First, you're just watching regular. Then it's like little fetishes. Then it's gangbang. Then you get into the weird stuff, and then it's insane. Then you have like Lily Phillips, like collecting semen in jars, like crazy shit, and like laughing about it. God, I want to interview her. Like, that is my dream, because I really feel like there's so much that wasn't said. Like, there's so much under there.
Some trauma.
I'd love to pull that out, because I know Russell interviewed her, and I didn't really see that, but I maybe need to watch the whole thing. But
no one's been able to pull it out. No one's been able to get to the root cause of why she's doing it.
I take on the challenge. Someone connect me to her.
Yeah, maybe a female would be good, because Candace was too harsh on her.
Candace was going to just put her down. Yeah. I promise you, I believe I could get it out.
Okay.
This is my goal in life.
That's your life goal.
This is my life goal. So yeah, it's really tough. Now, I always say, if you want, make your own. Consensual adults. Yeah. Like, have fun. Get a camera out. You guys have to be like okay with this, sign agreements. But like, I just think there's so much damage that happens. I know guys, and honestly, like, I just want to encourage men, like, that I know it's like women in their weave, or women in their nails. Like, and even though there's certain implications that are bad, we'd still do it. We can't live without it. And I feel like this is kind of what's happened with men. Like, it has such a stronghold on them.
It does.
And I know it's challenging, and your brain gets tricked, it gets fucked, but you can unfuck it, and just like my book. So
absolutely. Where can people find your book and keep up with you?
Yeah, Amazon right here.
On F Your Sex Life. All right.
On F Your Sex Life. It's on Kindle.
Is it on Audible too?
I'm working on that. Terrell Owens wrote my foreword.
Nice. T.O. baby. All right. We'll link it below. Thanks for coming on again.
Thank you so much.
Check her out, guys. See you next.